I think we should stop making Ponzi schemes and we should stop building things that are for short-term gains. Something I've seen so many people do nowadays is they build a perp dex, they build a points program, they launch a points program, they get listed on Binance Launchpad, and then they launch their token, and then their app just goes to shit.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Colors of Web3 and Entrepreneurship. My name is Lum, your Web3 host. For those of you who are new to the show, Colors of Web3 and Entrepreneurship is a show highlighting the journeys of builders and innovators in Web3 and entrepreneurship. Some topics, especially in Web3, may get technical, but we do our best to keep it accessible for most people. And here I am today. I'm joined by Arisa Toyosaki. She's the co-founder of Cega Finance. Arisa, can you give a quick introduction about yourself?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me on the show, Lam. Hi, everyone. My name is Arisa Toyosaki. I'm co-founder of Cega Finance, which is a DeFi protocol that creates structured investment solutions that are powered by exotic options. We'll go more into what all of those terms mean, but essentially we're a staking protocol where you can connect your wallet on Ethereum, Arbitrum, or Solana and be able to get a really interesting return on the items that you stake. So yeah, super excited to chat a bit more about Sega and about everything that's going on in DeFi nowadays.
Cool, awesome. Yeah, for sure we'll get into all of that, define your project. But first, I think a lot of people might be wondering, about your professional background. Could you share maybe a little bit about your professional background, maybe from the point of your professional career, or you can choose whatever point appropriate, leading up to the current position as co-founder of Cega Finance. That'll be helpful.
Yeah, for sure. So I actually started my journey in crypto through tech. So when I was in university, I studied computer science. I was majoring in human computer interaction and artificial intelligence. And then after graduating
Was
from
it in
university,
Japan? In Japan? Okay.
no, it was in the US. Yeah. And I wanted to go into a technical field, but I actually was not sure if I wanted to become a software engineer. And during the summer, I did an internship at an investment bank in derivatives trading, and I fell in love with options. I thought it was really interesting to be able to have these financial products that could show your view in the market in whatever way you want it. With a combination of puts and calls, which are these two types of options, you can essentially show literally like any views you have in the market, like whether it's bullish, bearish, you think there's more volatility, less volatility. And I thought it was just like a really creative way to show your financial views. And so I fell in love with options. I became an options trader and I worked in New York and Hong Kong. And after that, I realized that, okay, it's been 3 years. I've gathered my skill set as a trader and built this product understanding, but I've never really gone through the experience of building a product from start to finish. And so I decided that I wanted to try something completely different. And I applied to work at Google, where I was working as a product marketer for another 3 years. And during this whole time, my side hobby has always been crypto. So when I was working as a trader, I was dabbling in crypto. And then when I moved my moves to Google, I started really looking into different technologies in crypto. I started reading a lot of white papers. I started trading more often. And then when the DeFi summer happened in 2020, I knew that this was kind of the moment to start working on this problem full time. But crypto has always been the back of my mind, and I had always thought about kind of marrying all the different skill sets that I had accumulated throughout my adult years. And it was really the culmination of my years in trading and my years of building a product that really came into fruition when I thought of Sega. And in 2021, I wrote the white paper for Sega. During that time, I received a lot of like great support from people in the industry. Then I did a fundraise in late 2021, and our product launched in the beginning of 2022.
Cool. Wow, exciting. So you did work in like investment banking, was that correct? That was the first one, and then
Yeah.
switching over to Google. What sort of product were you working on at Google when you were there?
So at Google, I was working on search at first, which
Hmm.
is their largest product. And then from search, I started realizing that I wanted to work on the more like cutting edge technology. And I started working on augmented reality and Google Lens. So it was like the visual search feature.
Cool. Sounds exciting. Was there any groups in Google that were actually working on like Web3 or blockchain?
Not when I was there, but it
Hmm.
was definitely something people talked about a lot internally. And I think, I was kind of the crypto person at the time. And
I
so
see.
I ran a couple of like brown bag lunch sessions and I did a few like show and tells of how distributed ledger technology works and why we should be focusing on this like new paradigm of technology. And I think, I was kind of that weird kid that was really into crypto, and I was really proud of it. But yeah, that's what it was like.
I see. That's great. Sounds like you've been a Web3 evangelist for quite some time then, yeah. What, by the way, what Google office was this? Was this in US also?
I was in Google Japan in
Oh, good,
Tokyo.
Japan. Okay. Nice, nice. Yeah, I feel like in Japan, it's just my general feeling here, but yeah, in Japan here, I feel like maybe some of the software technology is like a bit behind, no, compared to US. I mean, whether it's Web3 or software AI, but now I think finally Japan. I feel like lately Japan has been really catching up with like the AI wave, especially with the large language model. There's new AI company coming to Japan for that as well too. So yeah, and then hopefully
Yeah,
Web3. Yeah.
yeah. I definitely think Japan had a lot of like issues, I think, onboarding onto Web 2 back in the 2000s and maybe like the 90s as well. And the government is aware of that. And so I think there's a lot of push into digital innovation nowadays. And the Japanese government has been very keen on looking at how to utilize Web3 technologies or AI technologies. And I think in that sense, Japan has a potential to become a center and a hub for innovation for really all these upcoming technologies that people are talking about nowadays.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think we were waiting for that, maybe that concrete and really comprehensive framework, right? The Japanese government is working on to help to pave the way for crypto. Yeah, because I think right now there's still quite a lot of barriers for company to build Web3 products in Japan, right, as we know it. Anyway, so actually regarding Web3 though, I'm curious. What was the first thing that actually led you in Web3 crypto? What was it like? Did you read the white paper of Bitcoin, or did you like what happened to it? Or what was the first thing?
Yeah, so uh, because I studied computer science in university in 2013, I took a class that was focused on kind of different like network securities, and I learned about the Tor network. I downloaded it, and then I was looking at all these different discussion boards, and I learned about Bitcoin for the first time. Back then, it was traded around $20, and
Hmm.
as a test, I bought like I think $20 worth of it, and honestly, it no longer exists. I definitely like did not buy as much as I wanted to. And then in 2016, there was a pretty big rally of Ethereum, and the trader that was sitting next to me, had put in a lot of his bags in Ethereum, and that's when I remembered that hey, like I bought Bitcoin before in 2013. I think this is something that like I think is really interesting. Like the whole idea of digital currency that is permissionless and accessible by everyone else in the world, is definitely some of the ethos that I can like align with. And so then I started dabbling a bit more into Ethereum. Also, working in traditional finance, I wasn't allowed to trade any normal asset classes. So I wasn't allowed to trade equities or bonds. And
Oh,
so a
really?
lot of the
Was there a
people,
law inside the company? Was there a
yeah, it's
law?
it's like a general, it's a pretty common rule if you are an institutional investor.
Hmm.
And so the people around me were all investing in real estate, but I was pretty young and I wasn't able to invest in real estate. So crypto was kind of the thing that, felt really attractive. Then all of a sudden the trader next to me and I just got really into crypto trading. And then he was running his own like kimchi arbitrage bot like at home, and so it would like run automatically while he was working during the day. And then I was trying to figure out like the price difference between like Japan, like Mount Gox and like US exchanges, and trying to see if there was anything I can do there. So it became like a really fun side hobby.
Nice. Was this like back in the 2017, 2018 time?
This was 2016.
2016. Okay. Yeah. I remember back then there was a lot of like arbitrage opportunity, way much more than now, I'm sure. Right now, I think
Yeah.
very little for the between centralized exchanges exists. Cool. Yeah, that's very exciting. Anyway, so before we deep dive in your company, actually, one fun question is that can you share with us what do you do for fun outside of Web3 and crypto? What are your hobbies?
Yeah, so one of my biggest hobbies is I read a lot of manga.
Hmm.
And I think I probably read the most manga in this entire industry. I read on average around 20 volumes a week,
Wow.
and I have kept that up for the last 20 years. So if you go onto my Twitter, twitter.com/Arisa Toyo, you can actually see a Google spreadsheet that I've compiled for the last 2 to 3 years on some of my favorite titles. And if you ever want a recommendation for a manga title that you haven't heard of, but it's something similar to what you've liked in traditional literature or like other manga titles, I'm super happy to make recommendations.
That's awesome. Actually, I'm quite curious. I used to read manga, I would say, a lot more when I was younger. Right now, I don't, I don't think I have time for manga anymore. What is it? Dragon Ball, Inuyasha, a lot of those. I think I read when I was younger. I think this is like way back, yeah, more than 15 years ago, I think. Yeah, yeah. What are your favorite manga though? Is there any maybe one that you want to share with us? Just a few, two or three.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
You can
Let
just share the
me
name. Yeah.
actually share this on screen so I
Oh,
can go
really?
through
Okay,
it with
sure,
you.
sure. That'll be interesting.
So yeah, like my favorite genre is dark seinen mangas. And some of my favorite topics include actually like the financial ecosystem or talking about like investments, talking about different like behavioral economics. And some titles that I really like personally have been like Loan Shark Ushijima that talks about this underground life of a loan shark in Tokyo.
Oh wait, was this
This
made into a movie, right? I think I've seen the TV show, actually, TV show, right?
Yeah,
Shijima, yeah, yeah.
yeah, this was definitely made into a TV show. So if you're more of like a moving videos kind of person, you can definitely look at that. There's also this other title. I'm not sure if I have it on this list. I guess I didn't put it because it's like very Japanese forward, and this list was more for English speakers.
Hmm,
But there's another title called, and like
hmm,
kamo is like a way of saying someone who gets tricked in Japan.
hmm.
And it talks about all these different fraud schemes that happens in the Japanese economy and how as a consumer you can watch out for it. But also like, as a business owner, you realize you think a lot about what is the right thing to do for your users and your customers and how people behave when they make purchasing decisions. And that's like one of my favorite series recently as well, which I think is not only entertaining but also educational.
Interesting. Yeah, I like those title or the those volume that actually have some sort of psychological aspect into it. I think I watch a manga or anime? I think I watched the anime of the Liar Game, or maybe that was a TV show actually. TV show of the Liar Game.
Nice.
You probably have read the manga, have you?
Yeah, yeah. So if you like Liar Game,
Yeah.
a recent Liar Game similar version is called like Janket Bank, which is talking about how there's like an underground bank in Japan that does these games that makes like people bet their lives against each other. So
Whoa.
a bit similar to Liar Game, but it's more modern and it uses a lot of technology, like, using like smartphones, using like social media. I think that would be pretty interesting for you to look as well.
Interesting. Yeah, thanks for the recommendation. I would definitely check it out someday. Cool. Well, I didn't expect you to be a manga connoisseur expert. Yeah, it's quite impressive. I mean, considering that I know like startup Web3 startup founders are actually very busy in general.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
kind of in terms of like investing my time, I invest a lot of time in reading manga. So I actually don't watch movies or Netflix
I
or
see.
TV shows. So I've allocated probably all my entertainment time into reading mangas.
Nice. Yeah, I think that's a good trade-off, right? I mean, yeah, you can really.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
And
awesome.
okay, one last thing about manga. Like, I
Mm,
really recommend it as a hobby because it's one of the really few hobbies that you can actually use like 5 minutes of your time, like here and there, to do it, rather
mm,
than having to allocate like an entire block of time. And so, what's really nice is like, manga is like you can basically read it like on when you're on the train for like 5 minutes, or like when you're waiting for someone and like, someone's like not coming onto your meeting and like you have like 2 minutes. I just think it's such a good way to really maximize the use of your time while getting all of the entertainment launch that like you have. And so, yeah, if anyone is considering different forms of entertainment, I highly recommend mangas.
Yeah, I think that's a good way too. But I think for me, the problem is that if I get really hooked into a manga, I cannot really, say, put it down. So I probably keep reading until like the end, or if it's been out. So there'll be more than 5 minutes, I'm sure, for me anyway.
Well, if you train yourself, you can read it really fast, and then you can like just, get ahead of the stories really quickly.
Really, you mean like just skim through the pages and then really fast in a way?
Yeah, yeah. So like I think for me right now, like going through a volume takes around 15 minutes.
Hmm.
And I think, that's like definitely a lot of training over the years, but I'm able to go through the same story in manga probably like 5 times faster than if I would watch it on like the TV edition of it. So I just think it's like really efficient to like be able to go through the storyline. Yeah, I used to be even worse. Like there was like a point in time where I thought maybe I'm spending too much time on manga, so I'll just read plot summaries on Wikipedia or
Hmm.
like all these like manga aggregation sites, and I was like, nah, like I should actually like read this like
I see. Well, that's a really cool skill that you have developed too, like fast reading for manga. Yeah, I don't think I'm capable of that. I'm more like a listener, so I think that's why, and watcher. That's why I think I choose anime more
Mm.
than manga these days. Yeah, if I have time. Anyway, I haven't watched anything lately anyway. Cool. So yeah, well, that was cool. Good to know about your hobby. Yeah. Without further ado, I think it's time to let's deep dive into your company. Maybe you could share about the founding of the company, maybe the story of that, and then we can share about how it works, the product, and then if you have any presentation or demo, feel free to share that as well too.
Yeah, for sure. I can talk a little bit about how Sega was founded. As mentioned earlier, I have been working in the derivative space as like a institutional investor, and then I was also working at a tech company in terms of building a product, and then kind of like thinking about those skill sets. I've always wanted to figure out a way to bring crypto derivatives to life, and actually, I thought about like doing something similar to Deribit when I was still working as a trader. But then I realized that there were all these like centralized agencies that made those business ideas really hard to execute on. And so in 2020, with like DeFi summer, I started reading white papers about DeFi in 2018 and 2019. I saw these products being developed. And in 2020, I just saw the adoption cycle really take off. And I felt like there was just so much interesting things happening in DeFi. I like really wanted to deep dive and spend all of my time learning about DeFi. And then in 2021, I was faced with a lot of different hard choices. Some of it being like, okay, like what kind of chains should I be focusing on? And what kind of products could I actually build using DeFi and derivatives? And at that time, I was really interested in Solana and how it was building this really innovative new like parallel processing idea. I started learning more about Solana. I started talking to people in the Solana space. I just DM'd them like on Twitter, and a lot of them were nice enough to respond. I went to Solana Breakpoint in Lisbon in 2021, and that's where I met someone where I talked a little more about what I was trying to do. And they were like, hey, I think you should look at what you did back in traditional finance and see like which part of the cycle you can actually replace with a smart contract. And so I thought about what I used to do in traditional finance, which was like structuring the product, designing the product itself, selling it to customers. If the customer buys it, I hedge the risk, and then the risk kind of stays within my book, and then the customer gets the product. And the whole process was quite manual, and every single day I had to check and make sure that the customer's position was not liquidated or like was actually still very healthy, was actually like not going to have any sort of like an event trigger. And so when I looked at that, I was like, okay, I think this whole process of what we call lifecycle management can be automated using a smart contract. And so I created this white paper which talked about like the existing issues in DeFi, which is that like, products are quite Ponzi and there needs to be like better influence from traditional finance coming into these like product innovation schemes. There's a lot of like back then there was a lot of anonymous projects and I was like, hey, I'm gonna dox myself. Like I think people should be able to trust the product and the protocol. And then the third was that in traditional finance, this lifecycle management operation is extremely costly, and we can actually move that entire market on chain. And so I wrote a white paper talking about the value of having options and exotic options on a smart contract. And then it was during Solana Breakpoint that I wrote this white paper. And then my friends who were there helped send that to a few like VC firms, and we ended up doing a fundraise on top of that. And then I realized that my whole life I not worked at startups. I had worked in product marketing. I had worked in traditional finance. I wanted to work with someone that was also an engineer and had startup experience. I interviewed a few potential co-founders, but couldn't find anyone good. And one day I just went to like a random event. I was lining up for a taco food truck and I like looked
Hmm.
behind me and there was like a nice looking person and I was like, hey, how's it going? And he was like, hey, like how's it going? And we just like started talking about like random stuff. And I was like, yeah, yeah, like, I've been looking for a co-founder for this product and like I've been thinking about this idea, like I know it's gonna go well and like people are really interested in it. And he was like, that's really funny because I just finished Y Combinator and I was thinking of shutting down my company and starting a new one. And
Wow.
he was like, can I learn more about it? And so I sent him my white paper. And the next day he came back and he was like, hey, I think we should do this together. And then he was like, my co founder from my previous company comes as a package. And I was like, okay. Yeah, so that's how we got our three co founders.
I see. Wow, that's awesome. So this was this also in Lisbon then, where you met the other co-founders?
No, that
Oh
was
no,
in New York. So
New
I was
York.
in New York to speak at a random conference about crypto marketing.
Nice. Awesome. Wow. Yeah, very international. Actually, I think you mentioned a point about what is it? Life cycle management in TradFi is very expensive. I mean, I don't think a lot of my viewers and audience would be able to understand that unless if they have worked in there. Can you explain why at that
Yeah,
point?
sure.
Yeah.
So an example of a product on Sega is like basically every trade is a bet, right? And as a user, an example of a trade you're betting on Sega is, hey, I bet that in the next 27 days, neither BTC nor ETH will fall more than 90%. And in return, I'm staking my USDC and I'll get a 15% return on the USDC. Those are the types of bets that you can make on our platform. And then I'm betting that in the next 27 days, every single day, neither BTC nor ETH will fall more than 90%. That means every single day, you need to check whether that user's starting position has not fallen more than 90%. That check in a traditional financial firm happens manually because you need to make sure that the market data is correct. You also need to, and all the system is super archaic. So a lot of the entry is manual. And so nothing is really automated. But then in crypto, because everything is on chain and it's trustworthy, you don't really have to worry that it's not trustworthy data. And then you also can show, even though things are automated, everyone else can check your work. And so you don't have to worry about things being a mistake. And I think that's like a really important portion. And so people are able to check their positions on Sega and trust that this lifecycle management of observing and making sure that every single day your position is not below 90% and you're going to continue to make your returns, you can check all of that on chain. And I think that's like a really important part that we're able to replace with our technology versus the traditional financial environment.
I see. Yeah, I think that makes sense. What would be an example of bet in the traditional TradFi? traditional finance? Like what would you be betting on? Like betting on interest rate or something?
Well, you can bet on interest rates, you can bet on equities. So a very similar strategy in traditional finance would be like, hey, I'm betting that in the next 27 days, neither Apple or Google stock is going to fall more than 90%, and in return, I get 5%. Um, you can see that in traditional finance, these strategies also have much lower returns. So not only, and this is because the operation cost is much higher, as also the value of options in traditional finance is generally lower than the value of options in crypto.
When you said the value is lower, like that, does it have to do with like the figure value, the nominal value, or?
Yeah, so option is a contract between two parties
Hmm.
where you're betting that in a few days, like you think the price of like this asset is going to go up or down, but then the contract itself has a value. And so um, the contract is trading the underlying, but then you can trade the contract itself. And
Hmm.
so the value of the contract in crypto, where you're betting that BTC might go up or down in a few days, is usually higher than the value of, say, like the S&P going up or down like in a few days.
Interesting. So value of contract is higher. Is it just something intrinsic, or that you have to do with like the inefficiency, or what was the cause of that?
Yeah, so basically, like the value of an option is like a, value of an option uses this mathematical formula called the Black-Scholes formula. Have you heard
Black-Scholes.
of that before?
Yes, very famous.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so a Black-Scholes formula is basically including like these numerical inputs that creates the value of an option. So you can get the price of an option by plugging numbers into the Black-Scholes formula. But one of the things that you plug into the Black-Scholes formula is it's basically like similar to how the value of a stock is decided by someone's willingness to buy and someone's willingness to sell.
Yeah.
Like there's also the value of like someone's willingness to buy and willingness to sell in options. And so there's like parameters that could change within the Black-Scholes formula that changes the outcome of the price of the contract. And then the price of the contract is also then like, it goes up or down depending on people's willingness to buy and willingness to sell. So it's like basically derivative asset class. A derivative is basically like something on top of like an existing asset class. So it's something that, has existed in traditional finance for multiple decades, but it's also a relatively new market that started becoming a lot more popular in the
I see. Yeah, makes sense. So then in crypto, do you also use Black-Scholes or no? Probably no, right?
80s. We do.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yes, so Black-Scholes is used to basically estimate like what the intrinsic value of the option is, but then obviously there's always going to be like a bid and ask around that. So there's always going to be some movement of the price of the option itself.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think this is really bringing back to a lot of my data science day. I briefly learned about the Black-Scholes. I don't think I've actually had any chance to apply in real life yet because my data science wasn't really get to that level where you actually need to use a Black-Scholes anyway. But then I'm curious, some of the parameters you were saying, if I remember correctly, and please correct me. I'm still not an expert on Black-Scholes anyway. I think there's like a free interest rate, right? Yeah, and free interest rate. There's a few other parameters. I think there's a K, there's a P somewhere. Anyway, and
Yeah,
so
yeah,
so
yeah.
what would be like the free interest rate in crypto then? What would be the equivalent, or is it the same as the one
Yeah,
used in
so
TradFi?
yeah, that's a great question. So first of all, there's like the typical parameters are like spot, which is like where the asset is where the underlying asset is currently trading. There's strike, which is like, where you think the price of the asset will be, or like whatever uh determine price you want to be buying or selling the asset at a certain point, a certain time. There's the maturity, which is like the how long this option contract is good for. And then there's like volatility, which is like how much like the underlying asset like moves, like what the standard deviation of it is. There's like the risk-free interest rate, like you mentioned, which is like, if you were to hold everything in cash, like how much money what is the opportunity cost if you were to spend the cash upfront? And then there's also like dividends. So like what if the underlying asset pays something out and the value of the underlying asset is going to go down, like how will you value that? And so there's like, yeah, and then there's also like implied volatility, which is like where you think the standard deviation will be like at the maturity date. So I think those are all these different kinds of inputs that you put into Black-Scholes to determine the options price. But then in terms of risk-free rate in crypto, there is a little bit of a difference right now between CeFi and DeFi. Generally, like in CeFi and in blue chip crypto, you can use the funding rate. And so if you're going to quote like 1 month option, then you look at like the 1 month futures like funding rate for like BTC. And then if you're looking for risk-free interest rate for like an altcoin, I think you can look at some of the lending protocols that does like the small cap coins. You can also look at like the base like blue chip funding rate and like do some adjustments on top of that. Like people estimate it very differently, but the more like alternative the underlying becomes, the wider the spread of the options price. So basically buyers are not as willing to buy the options contract, the sellers are not as willing to sell the options contract.
I see. Cool. That's exciting. I did not know that you can use a funding rate as an interest rate in crypto. Interesting. So when you write a smart contract, I mean, we don't have to get too deep here, but it's up to you. But when you wrote the smart contract, or when your team wrote the smart contract, did someone actually recreate the Black-Scholes equation and put it into the smart contract
So
for the option
yeah,
to?
so basically like the way like Sega's contract works is we have automated the entire lifecycle management and we make these products permissionlessly accessible to anyone. And that's where our value is. The options liquidity itself is created by market makers who we partner up with, and they basically bid on our auctions. And so they actually do the Black-Scholes calculation to determine like at what price they will bid our products at. But we also do have like an engine internally to understand like what is like a right price point so that we always make sure that all the prices are fair on Sega.
Cool. And then once these prices, the option has been created, can it be? I guess it can it only be modified at the end, or maybe on a new contract or something, or it's not modifiable during the duration of the contract. Is that correct?
So in terms of like once the funds are locked in a smart contract, yes, like it's not modifiable and no humans actually touch the funds that go into Sega's contracts. Like they're all executed completely autonomously.
Cool. Yeah, that's great. Do you have a simple demo that you can show us? That'll be great. I think that'll be good for a lot of the beginner
Yeah, for
audience that may be
sure.
watching, right?
But yeah, so for Sega, we have all these staking strategies that is available for users that are powered by these contracts called options. By combining different options, you can actually create like risk-adjusted strategies where the chance of you losing your principal is quite low or close to 0%. And then in return, you're able to make like a good yield that averages around 20%. So I can show a little bit more about how Sega's product works, and maybe that can give you a better idea of where we are. So if you can see my screen, this
Yes.
is our app.sega.fi page. App.sega.fi is our app page. If you want to see our landing page, it's also on sega.fi. It's really easy to get started. You can basically connect your wallet and you can choose whatever wallet you like. We're available on Ethereum, Arbitrum, and Solana.
Oh, by the way,
Once
I
you
just
connect,
noticed a really cute little mascot or animal. Is there like some story behind that little mascot over there?
so this
Yeah.
is the logo for Rabby Wallet, which is a DeFi native wallet that people use to basically organize all of their MetaMask wallets. If you use a lot of DeFi, like you end up with like 20 different MetaMask wallets. Rabby helps you keep your wallets organized.
Oh wait, I'm actually referring to the what is it? Is that a mascot supposed to be on the investment strategy? Is that like your mascot?
Uh,
The little yeah that one. I'm referring to that.
so these are our mascot characters, Sanic the Hedgehog. When we first started our protocol name is called Sega. which is a trading term for how much your P&L changes depending on how much the correlation between your assets change. And a lot of our product has multiple underlyings and has this Sega exposure. So we named our company Sega. But then because I'm Japanese and Sega sounds very similar to a gaming company that's based in Japan, people started making a lot of memes. And one of our Discord channel users recommended that our mascot be a hedgehog. And so we created this character called Sanic the Hedgehog, which also is a nod to the meme like Insanic. And we have Sanic throughout our marketing and throughout our branding. And we also have like Sanic's, say riding the back of a dragon or an elephant in some of our strategies. And it's definitely something that we've kept consistent like through our branding. I think also if you really like the character but don't care too much about DeFi, we do have the Sanic the Hedgehog NFT collection on Solana.
Nice. Hmm.
I can show you the NFT collection as well. So Sega Super Sonics was launched in the beginning of 2022. We
Wow,
have
cute.
done, yeah, quite a bit of volume on it actually. K maybe. And then we have around like 460K in market cap. And if you go down, like our collection is really cute with like a lot of different features. So if you're more of a visual NFT person, Sega Supersonic is a great community to be in. And if you hold onto Sega Supersonics, you also are applicable to some like special experiences on the Sega platform. Like there are some vaults that you can only access if you have this NFT. And we do also have like these NFT community special launches and benefits that we communicate just to the NFT holders.
Nice. Cool. I like that. Yeah. Really cute little character.
Thank you. But yeah, like going back to the DeFi protocol itself, we do have a cute character, but we do have a very serious product as well that gives you good returns. We actually just celebrated a huge milestone, which is that we've traded over $500 million of option products on
Wow.
Sega to this date. So we're
Congratulations.
really proud of that metric. Thank you. Right now, we have around $20 million like locked in our protocol, and we have four different types of investment strategies. So let me start with the oldest one, which is the fixed coupon notes of bonds and options. Fixed coupon note is this type of structure that we initially launched that I explained earlier. There are strategies like, hey, I bet that in the next 27 days, neither Bitcoin nor Ethereum will fall more than 90%. And in return, I get a 15% APY. Um, this is a really cool product because you basically have a 90% downside protection. You can deposit USDT, USDC, and USDE, and it observes that you don't go down more than 90% daily. You're basically betting that Bitcoin is not going to go down to $6,000 and that Ethereum is not going to go down to like $200. And if that continues to be true for 27 days, then you get a 15% APY. It's one of our flagship products, and we have around $10 million staked into this strategy. And if you want to go through some of the payoff scenarios, like what happens if it normally expires, what happens if it knocks in, which is when like the markets go down to this below 90% scenario. And then we also do back testing. You can see that in the past 3 years there was 0.0% chance that there was this price drop, and you can actually continuously make your profits here. This is the super safe product that users love for our protocol. And then we have another really safe product called Shark Fin, which is 100% principal protected product. So you're not even checking whether the market is going to tank like every single day. This is a 100% principal protected product where if you go into a shark fin, which is like if you go into a range, you get a bonus. And so you get this base APY of around 4 to 5%. But then if you go into this like bonus area, you can get up to 20% APY. This is like a really cool product, especially if you're really risk averse and you want to go on a vacation and you don't really want to be, worried about any sort of market risk. We have around $5.5 million in this product, and people are able to basically get a really good, consistent return as well. Again, the likelihood of a payout is really high on this product. And so these are like some of our signature products.
Nice.
And then,
Wait, I'm curious. So for these, do
Mhm.
people trade against one another, or or do they choose like one direction versus the other, or and
Yeah,
then
so
whoever
you're
win?
basically
Yeah.
always the stakers who are basically taking one side of the product, and most of the time these products like do make a really good return for you. And then market makers on the other end are offering liquidity for these products, and for them, for instance, the cruise control vault where you're protected for 90% of the market movements, and for market makers, this is like an insurance for their trading books. So if they are paying, say, like this 10% APY or 15% APY, they're basically hedged against this like crazy downturn scenario of if the markets go down 90%. And so it's a win-win situation for both sides, where for users, the chance that a market crashes 90% in 27 days is close to 0%, but then you get a pretty good return. If you don't even want to bet that, then you can bet on the shark fin, where you're basically getting 100% principal protection. And then for market makers, this is a good product because it has a lending component. And so you're basically letting the market makers have like 27 days worth of capital allocation. And in return, you're also getting a really good return. So these are the types of strategies that we offer at Sega, where we combine different sorts of option payouts, and then we make it very attractive for users to stake their funds and be able to make a consistent risk adjusted return. But for anyone who's a degen, we also have really high risk products. So if you want to do something really high risk, for instance, we have this product ETH Dragon that has a 76.46% APY. And these are called dual currency strategies, which is a really interesting strategy if you want to basically like buy low or sell high and you're okay with taking on some market risk. ETH Dragon, for instance, is a strategy where you can stake Ethereum, and if the market goes up 5%, it converts your Ethereum into USDC. You still get that 76.46% APY. So it's honestly still a really good strategy. But if the markets go up 5% and you wanted to hold it in Ethereum, and the markets are rallying, you might have some opportunity cost. So these are the types of products that are much higher in terms of returns, but it also is a little more to the riskier side. And some of our users that have really high confidence in directions are really interested in these strategies. And some of our users, such as like treasuries and protocols, often like strategies like the USDC Mammoth, which is like a relatively low yielding strategy with around 5.22% APY, but you're staking USDC in here, and if Ethereum tanks 25%, it buys Ethereum automatically for you. So if you put on a limit order on an exchange, you're never going to make returns while like you just keep that limit order on the exchange. But if you do it through Sega, you're basically making 5 25% while waiting for the market to go down 25%, and it automatically purchases the Ethereum for you. So these are the types of strategies that we have, and it's super easy to use them. In order to use any of the strategies, you connect your wallet on the Sega header, you go to the strategy, and then you can choose whatever amount that you want to deposit. You check the APY, you check the strategy. You're buying ETH at a discount when the markets are like going down 25%. Okay, it sounds good. You preview the deposit. It gives you the information. You confirm that everything is correct, and then you approve. So super easy, like 3 clicks until you actually are able to make this trade, and then you're able to then check your portfolio to look at all the different positions that you have. That is the
I
explanations for the product, but happy to go through any other products or any other explanations as well.
I see. So once they approve this, I guess it's like a lock, right? It's locked. The option is locked for the duration of the option, right? Like what you said, 27 days or however long the contract may be, right?
Yeah, so right now it's a 27-day lockup, but actually we are going to be launching a huge product release like later this quarter. So in September, we're going to be launching this mid-epoch like off-ramp solution where you actually won't have a 27-day lockup, and you're going to be able to trade the LP Sega tokens that you get. And this is something I really love because it's another like very DeFi specific thing. In traditional finance, these lockups, you are not able to capitalize like if you wanted to withdraw early, or you had to like take like a really large loss. But then we're actually going to be creating a platform where you're able to trade your LP Sega tokens.
I see. I think
Yeah,
I've
so if
heard.
you go to your
Hmm.
portfolio, you can basically see that um, all the different positions that you have been staking in. For instance, I've had my position in like Gotta Go Fast for like I think a year, and I put in 5,000 USDC that is now worth 5,986 USDC.
Cool.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, like to this date, we've given out over $3.8 million in user rewards. And this is like no Ponzi, like no restaking. It's just pure options trades.
Nice. Yeah, I like that. I mean, that's like 20%, right? Return in 1 year, right? 5,000 to 6,000 over there. Yeah, I think that's really good, yeah, for sure. Yeah, compared to like whatever the free interest rate in the TradFi is, I think it's like what 5% right now, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And
Mm.
not even just like risk-free interest rates in TradFi, right? Like I think in crypto and especially in DeFi right now, there's only two types of returns. It's super high risky degen returns that honestly the expected value is so low. Like if you're doing perps or if you're doing meme coins, I think, maybe once in a while you get like 100x, but most of the time people's portfolios don't end up positive. And then there's also super conservative returns like staking on Lido and being like a validator, which is like averaging around 3%. And so you're making below US Treasury rates. I think there's a lot of interest in having above Lido but below meme coin risk. These types of returns is definitely a market that I think people will come to their senses to.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'll take some time. I think yeah, there's I think a lot more option in DeFi besides just meme coin. But of course, meme coins are getting a lot of the attention, right, for people because it's easy, very easy for people to understand. I mean, for some of your product, I would say that yeah, it will be a bit tough for people who may not have like a finance background, or maybe or like completely new to finance and then completely new to crypto, right? So you have to like learn two fields at the same time while trying to navigate this. So it could be I could see there's like one of the potential hurdle. But no, I totally agree. I mean, yeah, if you savvy enough, you can find some good deal in crypto for sure.
Yeah. And if you go onto our documentation or if you go to our strategies page, like each of these strategies are written out like very um like with like varying payoff scenarios and backtest results. So you can definitely do a lot of due diligence and research. And if you have any questions, we have moderators available 24/7 on our Discord channel that you can ask questions to. You can also always DM me on Twitter.
Cool. By the way, is this mainly on Ethereum mainnet at the moment, or is it on other chains as well?
So we do have a lot of users on Arbitrum and Solana, but a lot of our TVL is on Ethereum.
I see. I mean, I do think that we're still in a very early days of crypto. So, of course, in crypto is inherently risky. So, what are some of the potential risks associated with using your platform or some of the product?
Yeah, for sure. So in terms of potential risks, there's obviously market risk for some of the products. So if the underlying market, which is often like Bitcoin or Ethereum, goes in a way that you don't prefer, there is a risk that a part of your principal may be liquidated. And then there's also smart contract risk. So while we put every single line of our code into audit and we put trust and security as the highest priority at Sega, you are also locking your funds into a smart contract. And that's something that I think everyone in DeFi should be aware of.
Yeah, for sure, and especially with the numerous hacks, and I'm sure both you and I are very much aware of in the Web3 world, right? Yeah, something to be aware of, and I just want to make it clear that this is definitely not financial advice for the viewers who's watching. Please do your own research. Crypto is actually very risky in itself. Exciting. Actually, now I'd like to maybe shift the gear a bit and maybe talk about the team behind the
Mhm.
product. So, I mean, how many people right now are in your team working for this?
Yeah, we currently have 16 full-time members and 4 contractors, so around 20 people in total.
Cool. How many would you say work in engineering and how many in business side?
Yeah, I think roughly half in engineering and then the rest across like business, marketing, BD sales.
Nice. When you said sales, who are some of the people that you have to sell to, or that your team have to sell to? Is it the liquidity
Yeah.
provider? Or?
Yeah, so I guess BD and sales are a same team for us, and they're oftentimes looking at new like business partnership opportunities as well as potential like liquidity partners. I think in general, it's quite important to have good customer support, and not everyone is accustomed to using Discord.
Yeah,
For those that want like a real person to talk to, we do have our sales reps who are also helping with our customers.
that's awesome. Yeah, for sure. That'll be with it. I think certainly sometimes we need human touch. But also, I think lately now it's also been like Discord people impersonators as well. So certainly you need to be aware. I feel like if one get famous enough, there will certainly be someone else trying to impersonate. I'm sure we've seen that too. Cool. So 10 people engineering. What are what would be like some of the upcoming? I think you said that you're launching a new product, right? Like in next month, and then
Yeah, so some like cool upcoming features that I haven't really shared publicly, so this will be like the first time I'll do it, is
cool.
we're actually going to be allowing for an LP Sega like token exchange platform. So you don't no longer have to have the 27-day lockup. You're able to get in and out of your positions like whenever you want. I think that's like a really interesting launch that's happening soon. And then the second thing that's happening is earlier, I think I mentioned one of our strategies, dual currency, where you're staking your funds into the contract and it's like buying low or selling high automatically for you. We're actually allowing to rotate between those strategies so that it's automatically buying low and selling high for you. So most people can't time the markets really well. Having these strategies do it automatically for you, I think is actually going to help you get good trading returns.
Interesting. So the smart contract, it would just like automatically execute, right? And buy low, sell high. Is that correct? With like some certain target?
Yes.
Is a target set by the user, or is it just already determined and the user don't have to worry?
Yeah, so for instance, like the strategy USDC Mammoth has determined the buy target to be 25% below market,
I see.
and you are basically choosing those percentages yourself. So if it's like ETH Dragon, then it's like a 5%. Um, all of our strategies have different percentages, and you can choose whatever ones that like fit your appetite the best.
I see. Cool. So basically, okay, and please correct me if my understanding is incorrect. So once user deposit USDC or USDT, right, into the platform or one of the options, that will basically be converted, and then the smart contract would basically just execute the trade on behalf of the user according to the strategy, right, for the 27 days. And at the
Yeah.
end, convert it back to USDC, right, after however many trade that happen in the 27-day. Is my understanding correct? And then the return would be,
Yes.
okay, I see.
Exactly. But then it would continuously do it until you tell it to stop. And then you can either choose to stop it and like wait until the last epoch finishes so you like get all your funds back, or you can have the LP Sega tokens that you off ramp or you like trade with like someone else.
I see. Cool. Yeah. And then I guess the objective return is that you would get more USDC or USDT at the end, right? Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
I see. Cool. Yeah, because I know some trading platform and protocol. They also like if you want to like maximize the number of Ethereum, for example, then at the end of how many days you get back like more Ethereum than what you put in. Right? For example, you get put one and you get 1.03, for example. So you get like a 3% back. Cool. I see. What do you say are some of the challenges facing your team?
Yeah, I think there's like definitely a few things that I've been thinking about recently. I think the first is that capital in DeFi has basically been like recycled in the last few years. I think people talk about the growth in DeFi, but it's really through restaking, and it's the same 100 people that I think are really active in this space right now. And I think that stunts growth, that stunts innovation. And I'm constantly thinking about how to onboard people who are outside of DeFi onto products like ours. That's definitely like a challenge that I see in the market. And then I think the second part is, I think there's a lot, and coming from someone that makes structured investment strategies, it sounds a little bit hypocritical, but I just think a lot of the attention in the market is on the value of the asset class as like a potential like capital gains rather than the potential of the technology. And I joined this market as looking at the potential of the technology, and I thought smart contracts could really disrupt this traditional financial industry. But at the end of the day, I think so many people really only talk about if BTC or ETH is going to go up or down, and that's definitely a challenge I see to growing a DeFi company. And so, yeah, those are some of the things I've been thinking about a lot.
I see. Yeah, I think that's very much a common challenge across the Web3 industry, as I know too. So I'm curious. I mean, just want to hear your take on. So right now, I think recently we got the Bitcoin ETF approved, and then we're already at the beginning of the year, and then Ethereum ETF is like also approved. Do you think these are good products in your opinion? Like, would they be helpful somehow?
So I think the ETFs are fantastic products, and obviously that's going to bring a lot of institutional funds like into the market. And when there's a lot of funds in the market, there's going to be a lot of attention on the technology itself. What I am worried about is that without more people paying attention to the technology, I think the value of the ETFs and the value of the assets will actually go down because there's like no good real use cases for it. Bitcoin was created with the intention of being a financial payment solution, but people don't really pay for things with Bitcoin. And Ethereum was created with the intention of becoming this like decentralized virtual machine. But if the apps are not actually being used and not being appreciated, then I think the value of the actual tokens will not be as high. And I think that's where I'm a bit worried about, where I think people focus so much on the markets, and I would love for more people to kind of like go back to ground zero and think about like what this technology stands for.
Yeah, true. Valid. I think that's a very valid point as well. I've been lately probably people pay more attention to like the financial gains rather than the actual technology, right? Yeah. It's tricky. I think it's tricky. I think earlier you also mentioned that DeFi capital for the last couple of years has been recycled throughout, right? And so what can we do as builders in the Web3 space? What can we do to help onboard maybe 1 billion people into Web3?
Yeah, I think again, like yeah, first of all, I think we should stop making Ponzi schemes and we should stop building things that are for short-term gains. Something I've seen so many people do nowadays is like they build a perp dex, they build a points program, they launch a points program, they get listed on Binance Launchpad, and then they launch their token, and then their app just goes to shit. And I think that's such a waste because you're spending like what, like a year, 2 years, like building this technology that then just gets dumped and no one cares about it anymore. I think more people should think about like what is lasting technology that you could build, and also what is actually a product that people are going to enjoy using. There's so much space in this industry that I think you can disrupt in and you can build things on. But I think a lot of people are just blinded by something shiny like right in front of them, that they're not actually building something real or something new or something that is actually useful to people.
Yeah, it's true. I feel like sometimes the financial incentive might be really big that it's overweight a lot of the utility of the product, right? As we know it. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, like honestly, I think, the biggest value of decentralized finance is that it's permissionless and it's accessible. Like I wonder why no one is building like the global version of Venmo where you can actually trade, like you can like, go to a brand new country and then you are splitting the bill with someone, you know exactly like which payment system to use. You don't have to worry about your credit cards being declined. I think, that's definitely a direction that I would be like super interested in. I also think, there's so much you can do with like identity and like building like a global identity that is not being affected by nation states and like kind of like political agendas that oust you. I think there's a lot of movement around like the network state that's like really interesting. There are like people with a lot of really interesting thoughts, but I think, yeah, in DeFi, especially like around derivatives and around like the protocols that I see recently, people seem to have like focus like less on innovation and more on like, short term like points incentives. And that makes me a bit sad.
yeah, I completely agree. It's also quite sad on my side as well, just to see a lot of that. But hopefully, I mean, we can certainly improve that over time as a whole
Yeah.
industry. Yeah, and then
Yeah.
just two more questions here from my side. One is that where do you think Web3 or blockchain in general is heading in the next couple of years?
Like the technology or
Yeah, or
the
the entire industry
the
itself.
entire industry. Yeah, it's really interesting. Yeah, I'm gonna sound like a hypocrite because I'm gonna start talking about the markets now, but the markets are related to how many people are interested in this industry, and I think it changes the number of builders that come in. I think one, like in terms of in terms of builder interest right now, I think it's a bit low in crypto because the markets have been pretty sideways. There's been a lot of attractive new industries like AI that has come up. But I think really, depending on like the 2024 presidential elections and the rate cuts that are going to happen across the world, I think that's going to reinvigorate the economy, and I think there's going to be a lot more builder interest coming in. I also think that in the next few years, we're probably going to see more institutional resources flowing into crypto. I think larger companies who have been talking about building in crypto have been showing a lot of support in 2020, 2021. They're kind of starting to build their own teams and trying to build technology internally. And I think those technology will get released in like the next like 2 to 3 years. So things that are like a lot more user friendly, really big scale, and probably like really industrial, I think will come out. And I think that's something I'm pretty excited for. I also think there's going to be a lot more conglomerates. So a lot of like super app type of moves that are going to come out. I already see some DeFi apps, like for instance, Jupiter Exchange is starting to try to build pockets of like Jupiter branded DeFi activity like across like all the different categories. I also think there's going to be like a convergence of, say there's like 200 perp Texas right now. I think there's going to be like clear five winners, and everyone else is either going to be pivoted or like they're going to be um, merged with like the top five. So I think those are the kind of moves I'm expecting in 2 to 3 years.
Cool. Wow, that's quite a lot to unpack. Yeah, of course, I think everyone is probably watching for the rate cut and presidential election this year, right? And then I think, yeah, I also agree with you that in the probably the next few years, we'll see a lot more companies coming into the space. I'm talking about like Web2 companies coming into the space, because now it's actually really easy to launch your own blockchain, right? You have a lot of these chain building kit or chain building platform software, right? Whatever you call them, and then to allow people to build chains. So I think we're going to probably see a lot more chains and a lot more companies joining Web3. Hopefully, that's a good thing. But yeah, I guess only time will tell. Yeah. And do you have any advice for people who want to start their own Web3 company? Since you've been doing it for like the last 3 years, right?
Yeah, I think so many people try to be founders, and I think that's not a good thing. Like, I just think that like you should have a good idea. And if you have a good idea, you might end up becoming a founder. But I actually think that there's so much you could learn from working really hard, like at a protocol and learning about the markets, figuring out like customer pain points. And I think so many people like don't think about that too much. Like one of my best experiences was actually working in product marketing where I got to talk to users and understand what user insights are. And then I had wanted to build an idea around DeFi and derivatives, but I never really forced it. And I think that's why when the timing was right and when I felt like the technology was in the right place, like it was a product that I was able to build and was able to see like, what I would think is like a pretty good success in DeFi. I think a lot of people in like the way where they're like, hey, like I kind of want to be a founder. Let me like think of an idea. Here's like an idea. I'm gonna raise a fund and like see if I can build it. Like I just think that if you like lack the passion in the industry and like if you lack the idea and like the conviction, like it will come through in your product and execution. And so one of my number one advice is like, yeah, don't try to be a founder. Like, have a good idea and be happy if someone else builds it for you as well.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, right? I think a lot of the founders, I mean, essentially what they're trying to do is trying to solve either their own problem or someone else's problem, right? So, I mean, if someone else is actually solving their problem for them, then I guess it's also a win-win situation. You can also go work and support that person as well. I think that's also a great case as well. Yeah, so that's great. Okay, final question. Where can people follow you? Please feel free to share any social media handles, websites, or whatever you prefer.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm most active on Twitter. I'm twitter.com/Arisa Toyo. If you speak Japanese, I have a following on my Japanese Twitter. It's twitter.com/Arisa Toyo _JP. Any questions about Sega? Our Discord is discord.gg/Sega. We're also active on Twitter at Sega_FI. So yeah, feel free to give myself a follow or the Sega account. And again, happy to answer any questions at any time.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll make sure to put all those links and information in the show notes so that people can easily navigate and find those. Once again, Arisa, thank you for coming on to the show today. It's been a lot of fun chatting about your world of Cega Finance that you're building. The cute little mascot, I forgot his name, but the cute little mascot that you guys
Sonic
have.
the Hedgehog.
Sonic Hedgehog. Okay, Sonic Hedgehog. And along with your very interesting products, I wish you guys the best of luck. I'm sure you have a lot of exciting things coming ahead. Yeah, thank you for coming.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lam.
And we're back to my studio. What do you guys think about this episode? Let us know in the comments below if you have learned something new about DeFi or TradFi world. I think Arisa and her team are building very interesting DeFi Web3 products that could attract both Web2 and Web3 users. Please keep in mind that DeFi and crypto are inherently risky, so make sure to do your own research before deciding to invest any money on crypto. For the next episode, we'll be talking to Stefan Cox. He is the CEO of DM3. DM3 is an open source layer 0 decentralized messaging protocol. DM3 enables other messaging protocols, services, and apps to become interoperable with all other DM-compatible solutions without compromising security or privacy. If you enjoyed this episode, please give a like and subscribe. It would mean a lot to me. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.